anything that would cause some sort of doubt or whatever. Typically the reason why is like, well, I could never do that. I am never going to be that great. I'm never going to be a great basketball player. I'm never going to be this and this and that because I'm too short, I'm too small, I'm Asian, I'm this, I'm that, I don't have the smarts. But then we look at the people that are great, right? We look at the people that are like the Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs or, you know, the Michael Jordans of the world or LeBron James, if you think that he's, you know, better than Michael Jordan, whatever it is. They don't, the biggest thing that I always hear when I listen to like self-help, not self-help books, but personal development books.
Yes.
Right? Like anything like that, the number one theme that they're always putting out there is that these people aren't born with some supernatural gift.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have more time in the day than you do. They might have, you know, and most of these people don't come from money.
Right.
You know, so, but the difference is that they don't have those self-limiting beliefs. Their perspective to the outside world is I can do this and I am going to make, you know, I am going to become a billionaire, or I am going to be the best basketball player to ever exist, or I am going to be the fittest person in the world. And that's what gets them going, and that's what helps them achieve their goal, is that they're putting in the work.
Mm-hmm. And it's that's what separates them, right? Because I think there's a lot of people are gifted in talent, but when you match hard work with talent, then you have miracles that happen in people's lives.
Yep.
And so one of the things that, as I look at this, that you kind of mentioned the fear of failure. I think one of my limiting beliefs for myself personally, as I think about some of my aspirations, is that I almost have a fear of it happening, like putting in the work. Because so like, let's say for example, I want to hit certain goals at work.
Yep.
I got to make a lot of dials. I got to make a lot of connections. I got to make a lot of emails. I have to be very deliberate with my time, and then that becomes work. Like there's a little bit of, you know, fear of rejection as you're reaching out to people. There's a fear of well, at some point you have to accept this is who I am, right? And so that's kind of where I feel like sometimes my limiting belief is in that, or I don't want to come across as too egotistical, too cocky, where I don't have the success of plaques on the wall. You know what I mean? So who am I to talk? Who am I to kind of say that I can challenge the status quo? Yeah.
And that's kind of what I said earlier when we were coming back from lunch. When we had talked about, you know, kind of like what we've thought about in terms of like aspirations, things like that. And I had said something about, you know, like, you know, what if we did decide to do consulting, what would that be? What would be the topic, I guess, or like the focus area that we would be consulting on. And, you know, we had talked about recruiting, and I had said, well, we need results. I think we need better results before we can go out there and say it. But that kind of goes back into that, like, that saying of, if you sit around and you wait for the right time, there's never going to be a right time.
True.
You know, and I think that's where, if you look at all the successful people in the world, it's not like they sat around and waited for a specific moment in time to do something. They just did it. And yes, they did fail. A lot of people failed, and that's their success story, is that, yeah, I failed, and, you know, Amazon was started out of a garage.
Yes, correct.
And look where they're at now.
Yeah. A little bit bigger than a garage. It seems
like.
A
little bit bigger.
So it's one of their campuses, I think, is like $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly. And they're worldwide.
So it's interesting, just because I think, like we see this. So you bring up like LeBron James or a Stephen Curry. Their coaches are asking them to run certain plays or to do certain things that the coach can't do anymore, right? So like Steve Kerr, obviously he's got some rings from the Bulls, but he no longer plays at that level. He no longer plays at that. Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Did he really?
Yeah, and so it's cool. I mean, so he gets it, right? He knows the nerves. So he can speak with empathy. But now he's telling the team to do things he can't do. That was 20 years ago, right? And so he's not that fast. He's not. I'm sure he can still shoot really well. But for you and I, being a coach, being a consultant, and let's say that realm, we don't have to have the greatest process, but we have one.
Yeah.
And we execute on it. And so we don't have to bring in the greatest talent, but we do bring in talent. And so that's kind of like, I think sometimes people get stuck that they're like, okay, I can only help people up to Everest if I've been there first.
That's true.
The problem is that you don't have to. Sherpas run up and down, and they don't go all the way up to Everest. They just help people get to certain legs of the trip, right? To different plateaus to acclimate and whatnot. I'm not an Everest climber, but I'm going down this thought process, and this is what I know from the outside.
Yeah.
If anyone's like been a Sherpa, then feel free to message in and let us know.
Let us know if you've actually been to the top of Mount Everest. But yeah, so that's just kind of, I think, the biggest thing. If you're in that point of your life where you feel like, God, I have all these aspirations, I have all these goals, but I don't know, I just don't understand why I'm not achieving them. Majority of the time it is your own self-limiting beliefs that are stopping you. But the thing is I find myself a lot recognizing that it's my self-limiting beliefs, but I don't do anything about it. You know, where it's like, so that's where I go back to my statement of, I think getting over your self-limiting beliefs is something that always needs to be overcome, regardless, because you can get over one self-limiting belief and another one's going to creep up.
Yes.
And that's just human nature. That's just the way that we are. And, you know, because for me, nobody in the outside world can tell me I can't do anything. If somebody turned to me today and was like, you cannot do this, I'd be like, I'm going to prove you wrong. You know, it's like how I was when I started my network marketing, you know, and that's why I still do it. That was me when I started wedding coordinating, you know, and this is where I'm heading now when it comes to like real estate investment, same thing, right? You know, it's, you know, people are like, you can't do it. You don't know enough about the market. Watch me.
Yeah.
But then it's like on my own internal, it's like, can I do this though? And it's not because of an outside influence. It's just me, you know, saying like, I don't know if I have enough of this, or I don't know if I can run this the way that I want. But
so a lot of times I think we get those thoughts, and it's meant to propel us to do something, right? So let's use this example of real estate. So you want to get to know the ins and outs of it, right? And so now you can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can, you know, Google online, you know, real estate investing ins and outs. You can read newspaper articles, magazines, right? There's a multitude of ways that you can learn about some of the mistakes and successes that people had in the real estate game. Yeah. And so I remember my buddy and I, when we were listening to this, you know, we heard podcasts on people making their living in you know, traditional apartment complexes, 8-plexes, 4-plexes, duplexes, single family, you know, one massive apartment complex.